Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back. There's something going on right now that you have to be aware of. Most are not aware of this, hence this video. One's lack of awareness of what's going on around them is not the same as said events not having an effect on them. There is a Senate bill that's been proposed called Senate Bill 686, a Restrict Act. You've probably seen in the formal news or other forms of social media that there's this thing going on with the TikTok social media platform. That's a distraction. Let me show you what's truly going on. This is directly relating to the issue of commerce and a form of retaliation, whereby the everyday man will suffer for the anguish held by some representatives of some entities against other representatives of other entities in another part of the world. Senate Bill 686, 118th Congress, first session, introduced on March 7, 2023. Although I highly implore you to read it yourself. But the summary of it is that this bill is an offspring of the Trading with the Enemy Act. Trading with the Enemy Act is codified under 50 U.S.C. 4301. And those who do GSA bonds will know that one of the things regarding full acquittal and discharge is in 50 U.S.C. also. Because if someone is considered a federal property and they are imprisoned, believe it or not, it's actually because of the Trading with the Enemy Act, regardless of the outside facade of the judicial proceedings that takes place. And one of the tools that you can use is also in 50 U.S.C. when using the GSA bonds. We've gone over that on Patreon. This thing called Senate Bill 686, introduced on the 7th of March, is its offspring. A video was done on the Patreon regarding the 16 stages of how laws are made. One must understand that to see the importance of how things affect them on a daily basis. That video was deliberately made so that these things could make sense and you can see how imminent things are or how immediate they are when it comes to things written on pen and paper, which are invincible strings that affect everyone's life, whether or not you're aware of it or not, whether or not you would like to accept it or not. That's one. Besides that first fact that this is an offspring of the Trading with the Enemy Act, second fact is that it grants an agency of the United States called the Department of Commerce, this entity right here. It grants them the ability to do certain things when it comes to your use of technology. See, series of videos have been made on YouTube and Patreon letting you know that the way the game is going to be changed is going to be through technology. And if you are not aware of these things, it would enter into your space in a way where you are so naive that all the other varying degrees of the small chunks and small pockets of reality that people are still dealing with will be effectively rendered useless. You must know these things. As information is evolving, these people are also putting it to use. If you say you intend to be free, you must comprehend how things are moving. What you ought to pay attention to is the department, which is that of commerce, which everyone is intertwined with one way or another. This Department of Commerce, there is a proposal to grant them the ability relating to how you use information on the internet. This specific section 50 U.S.C. 3161 deals with how information is used, sent, received, relating to something called, quote, national security, whether it's classified or declassified information. And the proposal attempts or intends to basically attack holding companies who have access to people or who people have access to using technology. And it covers a wide range of things that people do every day innocently. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as, quote, restricting the emergency of security threats that risk information and communication technology act. When you look at the title and the phrase of this bill that's been introduced, the first portion of it tells you exactly what it intends to do. It intends to restrict. And it evokes the power of emergency. Everyone knows about the Libor Code and how emergency powers were used. In more recent time, the C-19 thing. All those executive orders, even though executive orders are not law and they're not passed by the legislature, they were used as a form of emergency to do a lot of things that were unconstitutional. Now a bill on a legislative level is being proposed under the semblance of emergency and for the purpose of security. Security of threats. And the amazing thing about this bill is that it actually doesn't really point to any actual act. It speaks solely from a preemptive perspective by using this term risk. It lays out jail time and fines, all solely based on risk, meaning something doesn't actually have to occur. So long as someone says, oh, there's a risk, you have to be aware of this. Definition. In this act, classified national security information. The term, quote, classified national security information means information that has been determined pursuant to Executive Order 13526, codified in 50 U.S.C. 3161, which was summarily explained of what it constitutes. Relating to classified national security information or any predecessors or successors order. Make no mistake, this predecessor is 50 U.S.C. 4301, Trading with the Enemy Act. Right here, 50 U.S.C. 4301, designation of chapter. This chapter shall be known as the Trading with the Enemy Act. Everything after this point, under this chapter, lays out the details. The term trade deals with commerce. It doesn't necessarily have to deal with groceries, doesn't necessarily have to deal with technology. It can be the most basic thing. This was one of the restrictions that was put up to prevent what's about to happen and what's currently happening, the whole monetary thing going on, ahead of time. So what you have to realize is the people who run this system are not stupid. They see ahead of time. They know where their own weaknesses, so they set things up. This proposed Senate Bill 686 mentions, or any predecessors, it is making reference to Trading with the Enemy Act. And it even makes reference to the same 50 USC when it comes to classified information. And then it loosely say, or anything else relating to such, aka the predecessors or successors, meaning whatever else is to come. If you look at the language of any good contract, it would encompass past, present, and future. And that is what is precisely being done here. So much that when you look at this bill itself, it deals with something called a consideration. Right here, the fifth section, consideration. When one looks into contract law and trust law, you will see that consideration is one of the primary elements to solidify it or to even bring a contract into existence. A Patreon video has been done on the details of it. Within that video, consideration is one of the three main things or four main things that's required in a contract. A lot of people know about, okay, well, both parties have to consent. That's an offshoot of consideration. To require protection against unauthorized disclosure and is marked to indicate such classified status if in documentary form. This intended bill is under the perspective of protecting information in the case of emergency when it comes to use of technology. This bill is the unspoken and underlying thing behind the whole TikTok thing everyone is speaking of. That's just a cloud. You have to realize that money is going to be digitized. You have to realize that jobs are going to be digitized. You have to realize that many things are going to be automated. In other words, information are going to be sent quicker. Most of your phones, those hardwares, about 95% of it comes from China. It's not created in the Americas at all. TikTok is held and owned by a Chinese company. Were you aware of that? This is what I mean when I say this is their own form of retaliation. See, that other bill relating to TikTok, that's just the front. This is the true underlying things that they're trying to just slip underneath while everyone is focused on that, which nonetheless relates to holding companies when it comes to sharing of information through technology. 2. Control and holding. The term control and holding means a holding with the power, whether direct or indirect, and whether exercised or not exercised, to determine direct or decide important matters affecting an entity. Covered holding. The term covered holding means, regardless of how or when such holding was or will be obtained or otherwise come to have been held, a controlling holding held, directly or indirectly, in an ICTS covered holding entity. This ICTS holding entity basically relates to any given entity that has any type of product or services with less than 1 million users, or where their product or services have been sold to more than 1 million users in the United States, in case you were wondering. But the key here is this holding entity that they're referring to when it comes to the number of users or the number of recipients to which items or products are sold to is relating to a foreign adversary. Ask yourself, who is the foreign adversary in this situation when it comes to the monetary system, the whole dollar situation going on? But know that regardless of whether they are making a reference to any other body politic outside of North America, the one who will suffer as an effect is the everyday man using these technological platforms. 2. An entity subject to the jurisdiction of or organized under the laws of a foreign adversary. When you keep seeing this foreign adversary, they're relating to the Trading with the Enemy Act. And they even tell you clearly here the predecessors of anything related to classified information being shared, which is the Trading with the Enemy Act. And if you take the time to read the Trading with the Enemy Act word for word yourself, not some article summarizing it in a way that fits the intent of whoever the blog writer is or whatever you see on social media. When you sit down and really, really look at the structure of Trading with the Enemy Act, you see that anything outside of North America is a minute aspect of it. But in truth, is a tool that was created for internal insurgency, whereby you can't do anything with others that we consider to be the bad guys. Otherwise, we punish you for it. And they are basically transferring that effectively using this bill in a technological form. That's the basics of it. What does a covered holding entity means, which they make reference to basically throughout this whole act? It also means an entity owned, directed, or controlled by an entity described in subparagraph I or II, and includes any other holding, the structure of which is designed or intended to evade or circumvent the application of this act, subject to regulations prescribed by the Secretary. Covered transaction, meaning which circumstances are involved. In general, the term covered transaction, quote, means a transaction in which an entity described in subparagraph B has any interest, including through an interest in a contract for the provisions of the technology or service, or any class of such transaction. The core is dealing with technology or any service relating to the same. In other words, this applies to your internet service provider also. And they go on to reiterate the same thing over and over. And then they cover past, present, and future. Timing. The term covered transaction includes a current, past, or potential future transaction. They are covering all the bases. And guess what? Another well-known act, but not very understood by many people who utter those words. The Patriot Act. Critical infrastructure. The term critical infrastructure has the meaning given in the term section 1016E of the U.S. Patriot Act. Within the Patriot Act, critical infrastructure means system or asset, whether physical or virtual, so vital to the United States that the incapacity or destruction of such system and assets would have a debilitating impact on security, national economic security, national public health or safety, or any combination of those matters. Meaning in any way, shape, or form, physical or otherwise, it is somehow determined that it affects their commerce. It's considered critical infrastructure. In other words, it is as vague as possible, yet all-encompassing, technologically or physically. The term entity means any of the following, whether established in the United States or outside of the United States: a firm, a government, a labor union, fraternal, partnership, a trust, a joint venture, a corporation, a group, a subgroup, or other associations, organizations, whether or not organized for profit. Herein is the first crux to this video. The reason why I'm uploading this is to bring an alert to the mind of all these people out here speaking about foreign grantor trusts. Most of these people are dabbling in a world that they don't know the details involved. You ask them what a proxy is, what a safe harbor is. Ask them what automatic migration is. They don't know these things related to trust. These people are still in a stage where they've been given the 9(8) is equivalent to having an express trust or a foreign grantor trust. For people like that, or those of you faking the funk, these things are slowly creeping in, and you might find yourself in a world that you did not even know exists in the first place. All because you chose to not do your due diligence in really knowing how things actually works in its great details. All because you're only just finding information and just talking about it as a hobby. Really not a lifestyle. You're really not functioning with it. You might get categorized into a clump that you would rather not be under. This is the age whereby whatever you say you are, you must be true to it. You're saying you have a trust, foreign, right? These people are letting you know that entity as referred to in here means any entity in the United States or outside of it that's a trust. So now you've been screwing around, you've been sending hold harmless and all these other crap and SBC and all these other patriot things, whatever else people refer to themselves as. And you just throwing that term trust around, and you just throwing that term foreign around, and you think you're just gonna do a bunch of random things and not know the details of ramification. You just think just because you say you have a trust or because you say you have a foreign trust, that's going to be it. Have something far more hot for you ready. You don't even know the foundation of what you're claiming. How would you know the foundation or how to solve any potential issue of someone who wants to take advantage of you? Again, someone is bringing this to your attention. Competence in education is something you cannot run away from. It is something you cannot shortcut. It is not something you can fake the funk to get to. There's a West African proverb that says that when words are not expressed, words themselves will speak and express themselves later in the future. To put it differently, words are how we communicate with each other and how we create reality. We define things using words. We expand things using words. We confine things using words. When you throw words like foreign grantor trust, trustee, executor, all these things people out here on social media just throw around, you are using the capacity of those things without you being true to it. And one day those words will come back and haunt you. It's slowly coming if you're not careful. And I'm showing this to you to emphasize the importance of competence. If you're going to claim anything, just know how it works. Otherwise, you would just be a victim. And then they go on to define specifically by identifying who the quote foreign adversaries are. People's Republic of China, Cuba, Iran, Korea, Russia, Bolivia, Venezuela, and Maduro Moros. TikTok is held by a Chinese company. Do this basic research. Know these things. Whatever they're telling you about some bill relating to TikTok being banned, that is a front. This specific bill is the truth behind it, and how they're snaking it in using emergency powers, trading with the Enemy Act and the Patriot Act. And millions of people using these platforms technologically. And remember, TikTok is just one example. There are many more companies owned by and held by these entities, these nation states, that a lot of people access every day and know nothing of. And the fact that you're using it and connecting to it, you could be deemed as a party to whatever it is that they're saying is bad or good. This is just an introduced Senate bill. You still have to discuss it and go through the other stages shown in the video relating to how laws are created. So now you see the importance of actually knowing how the world works. Everyone want to talk about, oh, we're speaking about the law, we're showing the law this, law that. First of all, start with, do you know how it's created? Do you know how you can intervene? These things are important. When you know how laws are created, you can accurately identify and predict when it will be passed and triggered, and appropriately know how to handle yourself. So ask yourself, do you know how laws are created? Most don't. Merely reading things on the internet about laws or the statutory version does not mean you know how laws work. Most people don't even know that the most important part of any given body of law is the congressional intent, let alone the 16 stages of how it was created. And along with this act, attempted to grant the Commerce Department of Commerce, the ability to do certain things, because all these interaction on the internet, believe it or not, is commerce. You don't necessarily have to go to some website and add some stuff from the cart and then type in a credit or debit card for you to think it's commerce. No. The moment one man puts something somewhere and you have access to it and relate to it one way or the other, that is commerce. In addition to granting the Department of Commerce, or attempting to grant the Department of Commerce certain ability, they intertwine certain contractual obligations of who can enforce certain things with other departments, such as the Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Defense. This used to be known as Department of War, by the way. Attorney General, Secretary of Homeland Security, United States Trade Representative, Director of National Intelligence, Administration of General Service, the Chairman of Federal Communications Commission, and the head of the executive departments and agencies as appropriate. In other words, all of them. So tell me, do you not think it's important if someone is preparing such a thing as heavy as this for you not to know, or to know whether and how it applies to you? Section 3 of this introduced Senate bill gives you the core of why they're doing all this, which is that they want to prevent or head off anything that pose undue or unacceptable risk. Meaning, the actual act of whatever contention based on the predecessor, the Trading with the Enemy Act, the Patriot Act, that gave birth to this. The actual act of anything when it comes to the use, sharing, selling of certain types of information, or interaction with certain technological mediums owned by who is considered a foreign enemy. Any actual thing occurring doesn't even have to exist. It just has to be a risk. If you don't care enough to know about it during your lifetime, care about your children. Most children being born in today's world are being dumped directly into a technological world that their parents did not have the luxury of being around. Most children these days, 3, 4, 5-year-old, have phones and tablets in front of them. They know how to use it. These children need to be protected against these things. If the adult in the household does not know these things, how can they ever protect their children? We've spoken about things like mesh networks and how certain things work when it comes to information not being privy. Talking about things like PRISM and how data brokers take information and use it in a solution to that. And that's just not the end of it. Someone is attempting to use pen and paper to basically create an excuse that we don't really have any actual event taking place, but we can just say it's a risk. Because of that, it's an undue burden to us and we cannot accept it. Therefore, we'll do something to you. Consideration, a very important element of a contract. Rarely would you see the languages of any legislature that are introduced or proposed or actually passed be this detailed and very specific. They put it out there. Information and communication technology products. Like you will go to a bank account and their product is the bank account. The product here when it comes to information technology or information itself, product or service is relating to these websites that you go to. Make no mistake, you don't have to first go purchase some type of computer or some laptop or phone to go, hey, this is the technological product and service. Oh no. When you type in that domain name, so-and-so.net, .gov, .org, .com, that is the product and service. Information and communication technology product or services used by a party to a covered transaction in a sector designated as critical infrastructure, as mentioned in Patriot Act. In Policy Directive 21, which is also mentioned, the specific phrase critical infrastructure is also mentioned in Patriot Act, as we've shown. In Policy Directive 21, February 12, 2013, relating to critical infrastructure security and resilience. Software, hardware, or any other product or service. Software is the stuff that makes the physical thing that you have in front of you work. Hardware is the physical stuff you have in front of you. Or you see how, pay attention to the details of how they leave no space. Or any other product or service integral to telecommunications, product and services. This is not just dealing with your phone company. When you hear telecommunication, it's not just with your phone company. Because in today's world, you can use voice over IP on the internet. You can make phone calls on the internet. Products and services including wireless local area network, your Wi-Fi, mobile networks, your phone, satellite payloads, satellite operation control, cable access point, wireline access point, core networking system, long, short, and back haul network, or edge computer platforms. These people are so thorough with the details of this thing. Any software, hardware, or any other product or service integral to data hosting or computing service that uses, processes, or retain, or is expected to use, process, or retain sensitive personal data with respect to greater than 1 million persons in the United States at any point during the year period preceding the date in which the covered transaction is referred to. The Secretary for review, or the Secretary initiates a review of the covered transaction, including internet hosting services, cloud-based or distributed computing and data storage, machine learning, all these chat GPT thing, right? Do you know who the holding companies behind all those are? Predictive analytics and data science products and services, including those involved in the provision of services to assist it pay, utilize, manage, or maintain open source software. Right. Managed services, and content delivery services. Internet or network-enabled sensors, webcams, and endpoint surveillance or monitoring device, modems, home network device. If greater than 1 million units have been sold to persons in the United States at any point during the year, blah, blah, blah. Unmanned vehicles, including drones, desktop application, mobile application, gaming application, payment application, web-based application, information, artificial intelligence, quantum key distribution. And for those of you doing stock market trading and using certain apps, yep. Quantum communication, quantum computing, post-quantum cryptography, autonomous systems, advanced robotics, biotechnology, so and so. E-commerce technology and services, including an electronic technique for accomplishing business transactions, online retail, internet-enabled logistics, internet-enabled payment technology, and online marketplaces. These people cover everything even the average man who knows nothing about the internet uses, willingly or not. If the service is provided by those countries listed earlier, if the service is provided by those countries listed earlier, if the service is provided by those countries listed earlier, you fall under the scrutiny of trading with them as enemies. You fall under scrutiny of the Patriot Act. Those two acts that are predecessors to this introduced bill. Now, considering that the majority of hardware, whether you use a Dell laptop, Apple laptop, HP laptop, you use a Samsung TV, you use a phone that's Android or Apple, you know do you know more than 90% of those hardware is actually from China? Most of what you use in your vehicle, from your tires, to those plastics and rubbers in the vehicle, to the things that act as sensors for the heat, to the little latches, the most subtle things you don't even look at or even pay attention. Those metal parts, all those different parts, the companies later place their name in. All these things, think of any given aspect of life. Majority of it is from China. See, awareness is the first part to prevention. And prevention is better than cure. If you're not aware that something exists, you would not be able to prevent it. What I am doing is bringing your attention to the things that is currently affecting, that will affect, and that has been affecting your life. If not yours, then your children. Even if you don't do anything on pen and paper to try to put a hold to this or anything spiritually, the mere fact that you're aware of it and it's detrimental to you would put something in the air to prevent any of this from even being successfully transitioned within the stages of how laws are created. But I implore you to go further than that. Take your life into your own hands and intrude the information that you say you're about. Because this bill that's been introduced is the precise definition of a slippery slope. Why is it a slippery slope? And why is it important to be aware in the first place before the essence or the principle of prevention being better than cure? This bill that's been introduced will be hard to cure once it's been passed. So if you're not doing some spiritual work to stop this, if you're not functionally putting pen to paper to make something work relating to preventing this, once this is passed, here's the potential of what's going to be faced. Penalties. Unlawful act. Now, we're not saying here whether these unlawful contentions are right or wrong. It's simply being introduced to your reality. If you're still saying, this is nothing, no one cares about it, okay. These are what's considered unlawful, according to this act. In general, it shall be unlawful for a person to violate, attempt to violate, conspire to violate, or cause a violation of any regulation, order, directions, mitigation measure, prohibitions, or other authorizations or directives issued under this act, including any of the unlawful act described in paragraph 2. Now, the act of conspiring, attempting, or actual causation is not strictly defined herein. It's left vague. You now have to know the principles, elements, tests, and standard behind mens rea. Elements, standard, and tests that we went over on the patron page. Things like deliberate indifference, malice, standard and burden of proof of evidence on a criminal level. Can you imagine how many people are behind in these basic things? Specific unlawful act. The unlawful acts described in this paragraph are the following, meaning what is unlawful. No person may cause or aid, abet, counsel, command, induce, procure, permit, or approve the doing of any act prohibited by or the omission of any act required by an regulation, order, directive, mitigation, measures, prohibitions, or other authorization or directive issued under this act. Any given act any human being can do it any way, shape, or form, directly or indirectly. If you go against it, it's called an unlawful act, whether you know it or not. Because you can procure something but not know that you're participating in it. You can permit something but not know you're participating in it. It can also be likewise approved. Now, command, there's a good element of mens rea, meaning you're aware of it. You can counsel without knowing. You can abet without knowing. You can aid without knowing. They did not put anything regarding whether you know or not, but it is nonetheless considered unlawful. No person may solicit or attempt a violation of any regulation, order, direction, mitigation, measures, prohibition, or authorization of directives issued under this act. No person may conspire or act in concert with one or more other persons in any manner or for any purpose to bring about or to do any act that constitutes a violation of any regulation, order, so and so, blah, 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 under this act. And they're constantly saying order, directive, mitigation measures, because they've intertwined all those lists of all those other entities we mentioned, Attorney General, Secretary of Treasury, and so and so. The NSAs or any other entities as they want to act based on agency of the United States. Now, how many people are going to go read all the act and all the regulations and all the policies internally relating to all these other agencies to see what they can or what they cannot do? It's deliberately made to be difficult for people. So what you say you have as rights or liberty. Liberty is as simple as the freedom from permission. Rights is that which is due to you. All that is effectively being stripped away with this introduced Senate bill. A lot of people have this thing whereby they think because it's there on the internet, that's it. Or because they use a VPN, or that's it. So there's something called the Digital Millennium Act, Copyright Digital Millennium Act, which is one simple thing that any given business who has interest in anything can basically use to basically say, hey, I'm going to go to the VPN company and gather your information. And the VPN company is mandated to give them your information if they request for it. So that goes out the window. Just because you're using a VPN doesn't mean you're private. If someone really wants to find your information, even with VPN, they will. Unless the VPN company does not gather your information, because there's no law to say that they must keep those information of their users. The way VPN works is it just takes a server within a given area and puts everyone into a form of pool, whereby everyone, say 16,000 people from Sacramento, which is Sacramento will be where the server for the VPN is located. 16,000 people who are linked to that server will share that one IP address. But of those 16,000 people, if the VPN company keeps each and every one of your information, which often leads back to your geographical location, even if you use a fake name to register so-and-so, it always links back to where you are. They know where that is. That means anyone who wants to know about you now can say, give us a list of all the 16,000 people or any given people who visited this website during this day and during this hour, and they can fine-tune it to find you. Unless you use a VPN provider that does not keep its users' information, which is another key people don't pay attention to when they use VPN. That's the underlying research you need to do when using VPN. But moving on. It basically lists anything that's done by anyone on the internet or just through regular human interaction as being unlawful. A fine of $250K. What I would do at this point is implore anyone else who makes content in social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is, that people do this very consistent thing where they try to sell themselves and say, oh yeah, since I've been doing this, they're shutting this down and shutting that down. Do you know whenever those types of phrases and words are uttered, it plays as part of the motivating factors to really bring it to life and create this to punish people. So I implore people who create anything with the intent of assisting others to stop doing that. Selling is good, there's nothing wrong with it, but use other means that don't create detrimental reality and stop speaking these things into life. Even if it was not even the case in the first place and you're saying it to be good about it. Put that to rest just a little bit. In fact, even more so, if that is truly the case, that because someone is posting something on some post or a page or creating some type of content or some type of video is causing someone to want to retaliate or do something, then don't speak of it or lightly speak of it. Don't make it the main selling point just to look good. Because these people are going to look at that and go, oh, really? Okay, we'll show you. This is part of it. The whole verbiage where they say here, no one shall engage in any conduct, no one shall abet, counsel, command, induce, procure. It can be interpreted in so many ways. Certain things are just best left unsaid. Be more prudent, be wise. Assured bursts of fame and feeling good while saying certain things and posting certain things on social media creates a far worse detrimental thing in the long run for yourself and others. It behooves me that most people who supposedly speak about things of some special information, they're more focused on appearance, looks, and notoriety than the actual substance of information. And that's creating an entirely different reality of its own, whereby someone who already has some type of dispute with another nation state puts all that into consideration to control people in the background, implements a bigger issue with a small one that intertwines the everyday man. People must see things from a bigger perspective and how it affects their everyday activity. Bigger issue is that the contention is that, well, there's some type of secret of the quote government will be revealed through adversaries and whatnot, through hardware, software, and use of technology and communication. Therefore, we must clamp down on others. Remember, it kept saying no person, no person. It's not saying, at some point, it uses very specific definitions, which we read. But then when it comes to the penalties, it says no person. It does not use any specific term that was defined. It generalizes it. Anyone can get it. And to many people who are followers, don't be a follower, think for yourself. I've always used this analogy where the blind is following the cripple is following the deaf down a hill. Being one of those in those lines is not good, even if similar circumstances like this are not alive or not creeping slowly. Think for yourself. Most importantly, it's always good to be objectively aware of how reality functions, beyond some hype and short gratification. The real world is harsh than all these speculation people do on the internet. Most of these people don't even know about the basics of what's going to affect their lives. Now, whether or not anything relating to any social media like TikTok is good or bad, or whether some social media should be banned or not, is not the issue at hand at all. Privacy and your liberties and your substantive right are. Yeah, your phone has two types of computers in it, one being the application processor and the modem processor. And all these social media that people visit through their phone have access to them, the application and the modem processors, which allows these social media platforms to obtain identity and create a profile of you as you use them. TikTok is known to do that. So if any bill is going to ban it, that's not a big deal, because that platform does identification and profiling anyway, based on what you use, hardware and software. Many people don't know this. Many people, once more, don't know this. So if it was to be banned, cool. Who cares? But more so, forget about all those things external. Focus on you, and focus on what's being done to you indirectly by way of some type of hypnotic suggestion somewhere to the right, when in truth, something in the left and down low is really occurring, which is this act right here. Pay close attention. Raise your awareness about how the world around you works. Otherwise, you will be a victim. So next time, take care. Best of luck. I have a Patreon page, and I'm inviting you to come join. Whether you're interested in discharge, we show everything about how it's done and my own experience. Consistent posts are made explaining many things regarding said discharge. Many will seek and simply wouldn't find. Those dealing with mortgage issue or want to know more about it, we speak of it. For those dealing with basic stuff like traffic issues, we speak about the solution, and I show it from my own experiences and how I permanently prevent any such issues. Those worrying about trust, different types of trust, we go over so many things consistently regarding trust. We show the IRS manuals. Those who are interested in suing and making money through debt collection or other means, we go over it. We show it. I show my own settlement checks and the things that I've done as a personal experience. Those interested in banking, we show subtle details and intricacies of the things that I have learned. For those interested in other things like the IRS forms and how to put it to use, we show it, explain the details. For those interested in court-related matters and intricacies, we always show it. For those interested in the spiritual aspect of things and how it works, we show and explain it. Those with child support matters, we explain and we show everything in detail also. Great puzzle pieces that can never be found in other social media platforms, but we explain it all as it relates to many different things. For those interested in express trusts and the issue of how not qualifying for taxation, which I call dinking, how it relates to any other type of trust or any other affairs, and how you can intertwine your affairs into the different types of discharge that exist and lack of qualification for taxation. Speak about it. The truth about really recusing attorneys and the whole foreign agent registration and attorney lawyer number, we speak about it. Speak about how to really bring about juries, and some of the comment section asks good questions and greater answers are given. Speak about how to get and use tax exemptions for vehicle use and sales. You don't have to belong to some organization. You can actually get yours according to the language of the legislature within your state. Go over the details that a lot of people mentor about regarding Article 1, Article 3. What really makes a court? It's not limited to just your paperwork. Most people don't know. We go over business matters for those with actual businesses, S Corp, C Corp, LLCs, those who are business minded and those who make monies. Go over other things that a lot of people don't know functions internationally. We speak about a lot of other spiritual related matters. Details on how to bring criminal charges, what it truly means to bring criminal charges, what a bill of particulars is, how to recuse a judge, details of the parliamentary rules in court and legislature, different things about standard of evidence and burden of proof, different things that a lot of people will speak of. Discovery. But did you know there are 6 types of discoveries? You know how to intertwine your LLCs and S Corps with an express trust, how to not make them taxable. Do you know when Trinity versus Pagliaro really is involved? Do you know how to use your home as a home office? And the many details involved. Go over the injunction and how to enforce the different types of injunctions that exist. The intricacies of how data brokers exist and how they steal information. Not just the credit bureaus, but many data brokers and how you can prevent them. We go over grants, getting grants. We go over issues and solutions of CPN and how they're created. There are about 6 or 4 to 5 different parts that were created. We go over caveats where people say sue them, but they don't really know. We go over the things to do after you sue them. We go over the issues of privacy and technology. All the whole thing about perfection of security interest, UCC, and how to use it and how to monetize the birth certificate, all that. We go over the details. There are a lot of principles and doctrines people don't know about that we go over. Go over how to really do the copyright and details involved in it. Go over how to simply do a trademark. It's far more easier than you think. All these people telling you go to a trademark office, do this, Write this letter. It's not that difficult. Go over how to fill out the GSA bond box at a time, and so many more. How to get settlement checks, how to put your vehicle into trust. I show you from my own experiences, form for form, step by step. Go over the different types of relief to be granted. The type of relief you seek invokes the type of jurisdiction that you fall under. All these people speaking about chancery, equity, and law, common law. The relief that you seek is directly tied to the type of jurisdiction. Go over the CPN, how it's created. Go over how to obtain bonds, where to do it. Go over the different types of discharge and some more. We explain each of those types of discharge. We explain how trademark and copyright is affiliated with asset protection. We go over how to prove trust. We go over the different types of fraud. We go over the importance that many people will never know. So many more. I show my own experiences in the audio calls from court cases of how I get different types of settlement checks. Go over the different types of discharge. There's so much more that it can't even completely be spoken of here regarding trust. We go over how to create it step by step, and many more things that will never be shown on YouTube or any other platforms. Go over other principles that people don't know about when they speak about statute of limitation. Well, fraud does have a statute of limitation, but do you know how to subvert it? As to why that phrase fraud has no statute of limitation to bring it to life, most people don't know. There's so many things that we speak about. We speak about how to garnish people's checks and people's property. There's a form that you use for that. People don't know about it. Speak about details regarding foreign trustees. Speak about spiritual related matters. And on the Instagram page, if you get to join, come on over. There's also a Facebook page where questions and answers are posted and other reminder links to certain videos are shown. Until next time, take care. Best of luck.